Open Public Meetings Act. NJSA, yeah, 10:4-6 at SEC, annual notice having been forwarded to the New Jersey Herald and the Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board maintained in the municipal building for public announcements. Could you do a roll call?
Mr. Bon Giovanni.
Here.
Mr. Falcone's on his way. Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Kuzic.
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Mayor Gawani.
Here. Perfect. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Bon Giovanni.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Gawani.
Yes.
Perfect. No resolutions. We will
Public.
open to the public. Can I get a motion to open to the public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful. No public.
Where's Dave?
Yeah.
It's Board of Health. So invite him next time. Can I get a motion to close public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the animal incident report or the Board of Health reports from the county?
No.
See, there's a call on a bat.
Yeah. Hey, they can be scary even though they're little.
I've had 3 in my house. since
Yeah,
I moved in.
I wrestled one down with a tennis racket once. And it landed under the candy dish.
Save the candy.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Everybody has the Sussex County Health Department newsletter. So it is Fresh Air Quality Month, I think is what it said. So I don't know if anybody else does it, but I know I do it sometimes and I show my kids on the weather app and iPhone. It'll actually give you the air quality scoring.
Yeah.
Pretty
Right
sad.
now,
It's
the
usually pretty
pollen
bad.
is Through the roof. Pollen is through the roof. I can attest to that.
Yes, and May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, so.
We didn't vote for the reports.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bon Giovanni.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Gawani.
Yes.
Perfect. And actually, Shelby, I don't know, I know we get the emails from the county. Are we able to ask, I guess, Max or whoever at their senior center to post the newsletters for the seniors, or I don't know, can we
Yeah, they
share them
can.
with like other organizations in town that we liaise for? Like, I think Seniors Inc., I'm sure they would like, this is a tremendous amount of information that they'd probably like.
Yeah,
They do get a lot of these things from the county already. They do
Yeah.
send them down for them.
Okay,
He can have it posted on that bulletin
He
board.
can-
That's,
Yeah, you can put
Yeah,
them on the
that-
bulletin board.
it's right there when you walk in. I think that would get a lot of traction just from people coming in to see it.
all right, that's it for, anybody else have anything for correspondence? Perfect. Old business, so the septic maintenance ordinance. Did you guys get to read through what,
Do we have the recommendations on the pricing? Cause we left it out here. Or, well, most of it, we left, we've left blank.
so I
Like,
know, yeah, I know we still have to kind of
come up with.
figure out, we had talked about like a permit of some sort
Mhm.
being in place. I know we had to look into what other municipalities were doing in terms of, I guess, the data collection
Mhm.
and tracking. And we also had to establish how frequent we would like to have septic owners pump their
Right,
septics.
because this is basically 3 years, they're saying, but if you're a new septic, can be as high as 6 years.
Mhm.
So I like that. I think 3 years is reasonable. It's a little excessive for people that are 2 people in a house. But, it's something that if you're on the, especially if you're within like yards of the lake,
The lake,
uphill from the
mhm.
lake, you don't have to be on the lake, uphill from the lake. There are still a lot of cesspools here, and so I think it's, you know, 3 would be my minimum. I don't know, anybody else have feelings on that? I think that's what, like Mohawk does and Jefferson does, they do 3.
The last time I remember was every 2 years, you had to provide a receipt,
Yeah.
and that stopped like
Yeah.
years ago. Like
I
you had,
wonder why it
I
stopped.
think the enforcement stopped, I think, you know.
There was never really any enforcement for it. It was an ordinance that we were floating that never seemed to materialize anywhere because enforcement became part of the problem of how you could enforce it.
Is there any way we can get any kind of backing from the state or the DEP or EPA or any of those people to, if we're instituting this for the health of the state lake and the area, is there anything we can get from them, do you know?
So there is a state statute, Jen and I were talking about it earlier today, and the state statute actually defers to the local
Yeah.
municipalities and boards of health to establish
Mhm.
the timing.
Did the county weigh in on this?
So the county, when we met with the county said that they would review it, but the county actually does not enforce.
They don't.
So I guess
So-
that's my question
Yeah.
is, who is
Right.
gonna enforce?
So our zoning
So
construction official would be,
So for that to happen, this would have to be in the land use
use.
code,
Mhm.
which means this would have to be adopted by council. And it would have to be part of the land use code for it to be enforced by land use.
Okay,
So does that mean that, it has to go in front of land use for them to?
It would first come in front of council for the introduction, then it would go to land use, and then it would come back to council for final.
Mhm.
Now, the problem also lies in the responsibility of keeping track and
that
so
would,
forth.
that would fall on us as the municipality, and that's why we were trying to establish, you know, I think I was saying to Jen the other day when I was just kicking around ideas, you know, it's almost like animal licensing, right? Like, we know who's on sewer. I don't know if we have a readily available list of like septic locations,
Well.
just to kind of like check off.
They
when
said
people
it's pretty
submit.
sketchy, but in the 2 different houses we've had, one of them was a cesspool, there was a very sketchy handmade drawing of it from probably whenever, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And the current house we're in, there was the old septic and then the new septic drawings were there, so that's within the last 15 years. So I think it's pretty good, but it's not 100% at all. There's a lot of people not getting away with it, but there's a lot of people that are just letting it fly, you know.
Well,
that-
yeah, that's where I imagine it would probably be a lot like dog licensing, where like if we get a complaint or something
Mm,
about a dog, then it's like, okay, well, we know that they didn't register their dog, now we can enforce it with that
Right,
person, where before
right.
that, we're relying on people to just be honest and do what
Yeah.
they're supposed to do. It'll really be a lot of public education will be needed. And then, you know, when new people move in, if they have a septic, that'll have to be communicated to them.
Mhm.
We're talking about septic.
Well,
Yeah,
right,
so I
'cause
think
there
it'll
is
be a slow
state-
rollout. It's
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
be-
It's a state law, though, here's the rub, the state law is that you can't sell your house with a failed cesspool or septic. However, if it's a cash deal, they go through. I know 2 situations that happened for. So, we do have.
Board of
public.
Health, Pete.
Yeah, but
No, Board of Health, Board of
Board of
Health.
so isn't the borough notified though when the sale of a home happens?
Doors
Like,
open,
we
you're
have to
good.
change, we have to change the whip, we have to change the name on the deed. And where the bill goes, the tax bill
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
But if
It's
you're
not-
not gonna know if they ran the inspection, you're not gonna know whether they passed their inspection or not.
Agendas?
For instance,
We're going to get
before
that.
the state law was passed, the house we bought was a one of those little tiny things from 100 years ago. It was a barrel next to the door that was buried 10 feet next to the door. When we went to test it with the inspector we paid for, so now we're the buyers, not the sellers. And we ran the tub and the sink at the same time, it filled up within 5 minutes, which means it's failed. The water isn't going anywhere, and it took 2 hours for it to go completely down. We ended up paying cash, so we kept it, but we pumped it every month. We literally had the pumper until we could get a septic designed and put in, later on to the tune of $65,000 because it's on rock. But we were able to get it. Within a year, they passed the state law that said we could not have sold it if we had had a bank involved, but we still could have bought it. We bought it, because it wasn't a bank involved. So that's still going on. I know it because the neighbor did the same thing next to us. But he was sneaky about it. He had people come in, dig out the cesspool, put a new tank in, which went to nowhere, and it is now all leaching into the lake.
I think we should create a list where every 3 years, the homeowner has to come in when they pay the taxes, show proof of,
Of pumping.
yeah. pump
Yeah,
down.
I agree with that. I mean,
And
Like,
it's
I
it's
don't, I
a
don't come in,
purpose.
I don't come in to pay my taxes, like my taxes are just,
But you would set it
Done.
up like dog licensing.
Mhm.
The proof of your pumping is
Once a
due
year,
on
yeah.
March 31st of every third year.
mhm.
And then you have somebody with data entry entering it onto a spreadsheet that it's done. If it's not done by March 31st, a letter goes out. I
Right,
mean, nobody has to go out there and look at anything.
no,
A letter goes
So,
out
I
and says,
guess
you
here's
have
the-
30 days, and if it's not done, if we don't have the thing, then you're gonna get a fine.
So I guess here's my question of how that works. So dog licensing, it's due every year. I don't think you want people to pump out every year, cause that's like
no,
No,
too
no,
it's like,
frequent.
it's like $500 every time.
Every years, is it like by household, that household every 3 years, or is it like 2025 and then 2028, or is it like calendar years?
I'll do it from the pump out. So if you pump it now, so the time clicks for 3 years from now.
Well,
so
so
then you have
that's
a
what I mean, how
rolling,
do
then you
you,
have a rolling.
but how
list.
do you stay on top of
But
that?
that's also rolling, and you have people that have like a 2,000 gallon system, they don't have to pump every 3 years.
Right,
They can pump every 5 or 6 years.
I just, from an enforcement standpoint, I don't see how that's gonna be
So,
possible to keep
right.
track of.
right.
So you have to think about, there's a lot of different things in play here. Because again, people that have a larger system, there are people that have a larger system, they don't have to pump.
Right, there are
And then
some people that have
You
two
also,
systems.
you also have people who pay to have their septics treated with the Rid-X and the other things to keep their septics healthy so that they don't have to pump as much because it is so expensive.
Right,
So-
or even the fact, like, we're talking, people could also then start requesting waivers. Hey, I just installed a new septic. I didn't pump it, but we paid for a new septic system. Like, we want a waiver for this year. We shouldn't be required to pump because we just installed something brand new.
And there's a very big difference between 6 people living in a house and
And
having
two,
it pumped and having one person live in a house. They don't need to pump it every 3 years.
Right,
Yes, yeah, I'm single in my house and all that sort of thing. I had a septic. I now have sewer and all that, but I had a septic.
So there's a lot of things, I think that come into play. We're still waiting. I think the only town that we had some information back from was Jefferson.
Mhm.
And they do self-regulating because it really just got to be, they didn't use the word monotonous, but it just got to be something that was just very difficult because everybody has a different situation and who listens to it and who decides it. Again, I think getting the rest of the information and just seeing again what other people on the lake are doing with what they're doing, I think plays a big part.
well, we're gonna be in the same shape as Sparta of Lake Mohawk, which their lake was closer to being dead than ours is. Ours is close to being dead, 20 feet of it is dead. But if this is a necessity, it is not we're not gonna have a lake, we're not gonna have a community if we don't start nailing some of these really egregious situations, and people are not.
This isn't for egregious situations. This is just for septic pumping. If somebody has a failing septic, you call the county right now and the county comes out to issue fines on a failing septic system.
Sometimes I called them 3 times for the one that self-dug and they approved it, and I'm telling you that the water was tested every 3 weeks after they did it, and there was stuff in it. It was not good. So I'm just saying, as much as we like to think people are honest enough to say, oh, I have a failed cesspool, I'm gonna just pump it more often. People either can't afford it, don't choose to afford it, or in many cases, they're not gonna do it, but that's not gonna, we've gotta almost make it a a law like the state did, hoping that they could bypass some of it by saying you can't sell a house with a failed septic. We need to go that step further as a town, or we won't have a lake.
Well, again, we have the other three towns that are on the lake,
Right.
and again, you have a town that has something that's on the books, and they're in the same situation we
We
are, their
are.
entire town
Yeah,
is all septics.
right,
And they're telling you that there are, issues when it comes to enforcement.
keeping track. I agree, but we don't, that's.
So we have to make something that actually works.
Right.
And not something that we just put together to put together. It
Mhm.
has to be something that works for everyone with all of the different particulars, because there's a lot of different, I think, moving pieces that go to it.
Mhm. But I think you're right, you're gonna have a lot of people come in for an exception if you have a double septic or you have
Right.
a large septic.
So then I
or-
think those would have to be baked into this as well as to what's an exception and what they need to provide.
Right,
Like, I think that's the key, is that this has to have as much of those particulars
Detail.
laid
Yeah.
out so that we can enforce it. That's,
Mhm.
I think that's gonna be the most important thing. We wanna be able to enforce whatever the final product of this is, so we're gonna need to be able to answer all those questions
Mhm.
so that we can actually put this into effect and act on it.
Yeah.
And this is actually the entire septic code,
Yes.
Yes,
which is already,
extremely,
well, no, this is already the entire septic code, but this is already, being enforced by the county. This is our entire septic code. We would be adding to our septic code.
Anthony, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't. I mean, there is one question regarding it. I think somebody said John Urson wrote this up, but then I heard that John did not. So do you know who wrote it? Because I do think we need to have the attorney review it as well and put their 2 cents on it.
Yeah, so John Urson circulated this a couple months back, and this has already been commented on by our engineer, so it's already touched 2 professionals. Now it's coming to the Board of Health for opinions, but then it has to go to council, and then it would have to go to land use as well. So there are a lot more sets of eyes that will be seeing it, but this is just a discussion purpose right now. But yes, it has gone to our professionals.
Yeah, did somebody say too that the county has to review it as well?
Just as a rubber stamp, because they technically are the like Board of Health, Public Health Office for us, so they don't actually enforce anything. They just review it, read it. They want to make sure that we as a municipality are not holding them liable or responsible for enforcing anything, and then they will green light it and send it back to us.
All right, I mean, you know what, as far as the lake is concerned, I do agree, we need to keep a handle on that, because I think there are a lot of people whose septics have failed. And they're contributing to the negative quality of the lake. We have to make sure that we put an ordinance together, though, that works, right?
Mhm.
I agree with Shelby, you know, we have to make sure that we get this right, and we have to make sure that we have a process to be able to enforce it, or otherwise it's just not going to provide any value. So I want to make sure that we take all the appropriate steps.
Right, and I guess actually Valerie or Shelby, this might be one of you, the Airbnbs, any rentals in town, how often do they have to register?
Once a year.
They register every year.
Every year?
Mhm.
Cause my opinion, I would almost want the rentals to be required to pump out every 2 years. Just because we don't know what's going on at those properties, you don't know how many people, parties, everything else, so. I don't know if that would make this more of a pain in the neck, but I think we have to be a little bit stricter on.
I think short-term rental is gonna be a lot more different than just this long.
Mm.
Because I think because I don't know if we know how many short-term rentals we have in Obaka.
Well,
We-
they're
We
supposed
We
to,
have a license.
right,
No, I know, but I think it's only like 12 or 15 people
Yeah, there's not a
registered.
lot, there's not a lot of people who are getting their licenses like they're supposed to. But since they do, there is a process they have to go through, and there is information that they have to give us. It could be part of the licensing process that they then bring in, receipt of their last pumping.
Yeah, I think that would be an easier lift for that
Start.
component,
right,
yeah.
No, but what I'm trying to say, I think there's like 70 or 80 short-term rental in Obakon, and there's only 12 or 15 registered.
Right, and there's
So
just,
obviously, like whatever you do, it needs to be enforced. Yeah.
right,
And that's the whole rub with all of
Everything,
this, yeah, we don't have the staff, the county doesn't have the staff to monitor
Hopefully it's candy.
the situation.
How are you, Jeff?
Yeah.
Bob
I
on.
also.
Nice to meet you.
Think we should
Yeah.
recirculate
How are you?
to John Rushkey, because when I spoke to John today, he did not have any comments and he said he hadn't seen this in quite some time, so he was not comfortable.
This this was this came from another town, though, the original, the guts of this.
I'm not, when I spoke
No,
with him,
it didn't?
when I
No.
spoke with him, he asked me to have it scanned to him so he can look at it, because he could not find anything about it.
Oh.
Front to back.
Because again, he's another one that we want to get his input on that. So
Yeah.
we're aware of what's
Yeah, John's email, John Urson's email had said John Rush, you read it, but we'll send it back. So I think in the interest of time, so we can wrap up for the council meeting, I guess we will just do some further research and we'll come back at this is why we added more meetings for this year.
Just so you know, Lake Mohawk requires, the section requires existing, new, and proposed individual subsurface sewage disposal systems to be pumped out at least once every 3 years in order to minimize future malfunctions of such systems. So what you could do even to discuss further is, if you have lakefront property, it doesn't matter how many people are in the house or or whatever is a required let's say, again, I just go back to make it easy. Every 2 years, if you're an odd numbered house, you go on the odd numbered years. If you're an even numbered house, you go even numbered years for all lakefront properties. Lakefront. And then we decide, and Airbnbs, and then you decide going from there for the general population, because if our focus is the lake right now and the health of the lake, that's really where we should be focused
Well,
right
and we
now.
can get a list of the failed septics that would also be more
We don't- we
easily
don't know a
attainable.
lot of them. We don't know a lot.
But the
of
ones
them.
that are registered and on record. All right, so we'll stick a pin in it and we will continue to research. No other new business, so can I get a motion to adjourn Board of Health?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.